Jacob Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Want to remind you that Ethan Millard with Teton Wealth will be live in studio with Hans and Scotty today to help you with your retirement plan. Tune in or visit retireteton.com. What was the other one there, Christian? Oh, yes. 1st and 12. Can't miss it on Sundays, 10 to noon. Brought to you by Macy's Grocery Store. Get the freshest fruits and vegetables from local farms and get your favorite local brands. Macy's. Happy shopping.
Where do you think the anxiety level is for Utah fans right now? Not based on Isaac Wilson. I don't really want to talk about Isaac Wilson. We'll let you hear from Kyle Whittingham coming up here in 20 minutes, hopefully, from the press conference. But based solely on their schedule, that their wins now are over a bad Baylor team, Southern Illinois, with all due respect to Southern Illinois, even the head coach came on our show and said, we know what this is. Utah State, who's dreadful, and Oklahoma State, who just got smashed at home by West Virginia. Oklahoma State stinks. They're legitimately they might not make a bowl game. That win that was the feather in Utah's cap, that was carrying Utah fans, even with a loss to Arizona, was like, well, at least you did this. Does not look like a win that's notable at all. There's got to be some real anxiety, and it's multiplied by BYU having the success it's had and having 2 wins over ranked opponents.
Yeah. I mean, Arizona losing at home to Texas Tech wasn't great.
Yeah, and then Arizona gets beat up by Texas Tech. Ugh.
Except for what has fundamentally changed about Utah. I think they had a game against Arizona where they honestly beat themselves. I told you last week, my opinion was that it wasn't Arizona who won that game. It was Utah who lost that game for a variety of reasons. So I didn't come away from that game thinking Arizona was the best team in town. I still think Noah Fafita is really good. And despite his interceptions, he still had 300 yards against Texas Tech. I mean, I do think that. But Arizona's always been kind of on the softer side of things and isn't necessarily...
It was surprising Utah couldn't exploit that against Noah Fafita because he's been extremely turnover-prone this year.
It was shocking. So I still think, though, that Utah's defense is good. People like Steve Bartle, and I'm coming around and have agreed that Bernard is...
He's a guy.
Is a guy. So if those two things remain true, lack of turnovers aside, I suppose, but if those two things remain true, why do you think Utah is fundamentally any different? I mean, they haven't been blowing out teams for 20 years now. It's how they win. So, I don't know. I don't think I'm not picking Arizona State this week.
No, I think Utah's going to smash Arizona State. I
don't think they're going to smash them. They don't smash anybody.
Okay, I think they're going to handle Arizona State the way Utah handles teams. Technically it wasn't a blowout against Oklahoma State, but you look back and they were feeble across the board. Arizona State's going to look feeble across the board against Utah. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball. I think passing is going to be really difficult, and Utah's going to be able to run the ball, milk the clock. It's going to be pretty lopsided in that, and the score will be within 10 points.
It's the blueprint.
It's the blueprint. And then look.
Right. And it's pretty unshakable. Despite, some random losses, it wins more than it loses. That's why you have to blame the loss on Utah, not credit Arizona.
I think that's fair.
Because if they stuck to the game plan and did what makes them successful, they win that game because they win those kinds of slop-fest games all the darn time. But they forgot to run the ball, and they thought they were down 30 instead of down 13 or whatever.
7.
It was. 7 at one point.
7 at halftime.
It didn't make any sense. And they bought into let's believe in the true freshman all of a sudden? Let him throw 40 times? What?
Yeah.
It's like the same. It's like it was alien Kyle Whittingham coaching the game. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
Bizarro wit. Yeah.
What's the deal? There's only one reason for Utah not being undefeated right now, and that's Utah itself, in my opinion. So if you're worried the coaching staff is going to go in and bungle another game, maybe. But if they remember that Bernard's a guy, and if the defense still stands up, has the defense showed you that it's got a major flaw?
I'm a little worried about how soft they were against the run against Arizona, and that I know that they were dedicated to making sure McMillan didn't go off and Burnett ended up going off the tight end. There are some question marks that they're going to have to shore up. And actually, Utah State moved the ball through the air a little bit as well. So there are some questions about Utah's passing defense that I have. I would suspect those get fixed.
I don't think it's a fundamental flaw. I mean, again, they're susceptible to a big play like anybody else. But limiting Fafita to less than 200 yards is pretty darn good. I get your point about the run defense, I guess, except for they always are good at run defense.
And yes, I suspect they will fix it with a bye week. I think you're right. I think this was a bit of a trap game for Utah against Arizona. They were coming off feeling really good about themselves against Oklahoma State. Arizona had not looked very good. And they thought, well, we're at home. It's 8 o'clock. We're going to roll. And they didn't roll. They got punched in the mouth, and they didn't stand up.
I know you don't want to talk about Isaac Wilson and Cam Rising because I'm sick of it too, but it's part of it.
Yeah, it's a big part of it.
It's part of it. It's the everything is up in the air. And as we talked about at great length last week, it's not fair to Isaac. It's not fair to Cam. It's not fair to the fans. It's not fair to the media. I guess it's not fair to the gamblers, even though I care about them. It's a distraction. It's a mess. You're making national headlines for all of the wrong reasons.
And I guarantee you this press conference is going to be all about Isaac Wilson and Cam Rising again.
And it's going to be the same crap.
Yep, it is. So we'll see if we can hear from Whit coming up in about 15 minutes here. The good news for Utah is you look at these next 3 games. I think, like we said, I think Utah's going to control the game against Arizona State. I think they're going to simplify the game plan and be fine. TCU just lost at home to Houston, who literally had not scored in 2 weeks. Houston had been blanked in back-to-back weeks. Now, Houston changed their quarterback and had a lot of success, and that was smart. TCU clearly wasn't prepared for it, but TCU's not very good. Obviously, they're 3-3 with that loss to Houston at home. And then Utah goes to Houston, and barring this quarterback, Zion Chris, being this revelation that they didn't recognize was actually a good player until week 4, week 5, I think Utah wins that game. So I think Utah does win the next 3 games and sets themselves up to be 6-1 going into the bowl game, or the rivalry game. And I don't know if BYU loses before that either.
I mean, BYU's stretch is much tougher.
Arizona's tougher, kind of.
Kind of.
Oklahoma State's awful. BYU's going to smash Oklahoma State. Now, Oklahoma State looks like they're benching Alan Bowman. I would suspect he's done for the year.
He's already been benched, right?
He got benched in this last game. They went back to Rangel, the backup quarterback. And Central Florida just lost to Florida. They've lost back-to-back weeks in pretty horrendous fashion. So I don't know if those 3 games are what we're thinking. It is just setting up for an absolutely massive game coming up on November 9th.
That'd be the best thing for the league.
Yeah, it needs it. It needs Utah to be undefeated over the next 3 games, BYU to be undefeated overall, because if that happens, BYU is going to be the 7th-ranked team in the country, and Utah's going to be 9th.
I mean, that's what it needs.
Yeah.
But we'll see because it's fluky. College football is fluky.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt
beat Alabama,
Yeah.
so either BYU or Utah could lose any of these games, but right now, these next 3 weeks are looking like a pretty sweet plum for
It is ugly, though, that the Big 12 is basically eating itself. They need BYU to go undefeated. I mean, I think they were hoping that there would be an undefeated team in this league.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. BYU certainly BYU's their best hope.
If they beat Utah, they're in really good shape.
Iowa State's in fairly good shape. It's going to come down to their last 2 games, which is hard, at Utah on the 23rd and then home against Kansas State on the 30th. So going 2-0 there would be difficult. But until then, they have UCF, Texas Tech, both at home, at Kansas, home against Cincinnati. So
that should be 4 straight wins.
They should be undefeated going into Utah as well, which is crazy because if Utah were then to beat BYU, that would make that game.
Utah could have back-to-back top 10 opponents.
But you know what?
Utah would play Colorado and then Iowa
in between
State.
them. How hilarious would that be if BYU beats Utah and then all of a sudden the Kook fans are all over the Utes trying to cheer for them to beat the Cyclones?
Yeah, right. Because you're gonna need a little. You're not helping. BYU would be in the Big 12 title game.
No, but if you want a conference title, which used to mean something, or an outright regular season title, I guess. But, man, that sets up for an interesting end of the year, thanks to Iowa State with 2 really good teams to close it and should be undefeated going into it unless they really stub their toe. Man, what is it? 3 out of their next 4 are at home, too?
For Iowa State?
For Iowa State? Yeah, they're in really good shape.
It's pretty funny how quickly this has changed about who we're focusing on here in the Big 12. And Utah's got to make sure that they guarantee that they're in that conversation again. I think they're going to be solid over the next 3 weeks. You've got to start Friday night by beating Oklahoma or by beating Arizona State on the road and being ready to go. But
All right, you brought this back to Utah fans feeling insecure about their team going forward. Well, last time BYU beat Utah, what was the reason? Kyle Whittingham admitted the reason in the press conference after. They got torn apart at the line of scrimmage by BYU, like on both sides of the ball, but specifically Utah's offensive line lost that battle. If there is concern, if it comes down to Utah v. BYU, that would be something that I think you should look at. I think the offensive line really underperformed against Arizona. I don't think we've seen the offensive line be that great so far.
Agreed.
And if they lose that battle and Utah can't move the ball at all against BYU, I don't know. Is it another 3-0 game like we were talking about? In that case, it can go anybody's way. So I think that's the issue.
We've got a fascinating next 3 weeks. In the Big 12 for Utah and BYU overall, we've just got a lot of excitement coming up. And BYU's games are more noteworthy than Utah's opponents. I don't know if they're going to be better games.
I think BYU should be ranked higher than 14th.
Yeah, they should. Absolutely.
Based on what they've done, which is actually what the AP voters are supposed to take into account. What has happened so far? 2 wins over top 20 teams is pretty good.
And there's nothing about BYU that looks fluky at all.
Not at the moment.
No, these are all really good wins.
But see, BYU, the concern there is, do they continue to have enough offense to win? Truly. Do they have enough offense to get that 3 points in the 3-0 shootout with the Utes that's coming up?
Well, we'll see how healthy the running back room is coming out of this bye week, and if they get any bodies back and how comfortable they are there. They've scored 41 points, 18 points, 34 points, 38 points, 34 points. It's not bad by any means. They'll take BYU in the mid-30s. With that defense, they're going to win a lot of games. In fact, they might go undefeated if they keep scoring in the 30s with what they're able to do on the other side of the ball.
Very interesting.
Yep.
But if the playoff were to start today, it'd only be one Big 12 team.
Of the 12? Oh, yeah, because of where the rankings are right now. You mean if they fall?
And I wonder if it turns out that way. It would get very Pac-12-esque.
As long as they don't chew each other up at the end, you do need one team to basically escape unscathed, and then one lost team to get into the Big 12 title game, and then whatever happens, I think you have 2 in.
Yeah, Utah losing to BYU and then beating Iowa State is like worst-case scenario for everybody.
Yeah. Because a 2-loss Big 12 team might not get in.
I'd take the might out of that. I mean, unless that second loss came in the conference title game, I'd say 2-loss team not getting in.
Unless somebody randomly steals. Oh, no, it's probably better. Like, you don't want someone to steal an ACC bid, which is now we're getting to almost like the NCAA bubble, where, you win the ACC, you get that automatic bye. You want Miami to win, and you want them to win out and get that ACC bye, and Clemson have 2 losses or 3 losses by that point and fall out completely because they're sitting at
I honestly don't think that either league's getting 2 teams in. Well, there's not some guaranteed at-large spot for any of those leagues. Look at the rankings right now, Ben. Here,
I've got them, yeah.
Bring them up in front of you. Who's sitting in front of BYU, for example? I heard DJ
LSU.
and PK doing this. All rep teams. LSU, keep going.
Notre Dame. Iowa State, not so much rep. They're 5-0. Clemson, Tennessee still ahead of you. Alabama still ahead of you. Miami, Georgia, all still ahead of you.
All rep teams. That means that all those teams would still get in front of you with 2 losses.
And most of those teams already have a loss.
You're going to the back of the line. The Lane Train and Ole Miss is going to get, any of those teams are going to get the benefit of the doubt over the ACC and over the Big 12.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And even throw in a team like Indiana or something like that. Like the Big 10 will cry about it and they'll get an extra, as opposed to, that's my fear anyway.
Yeah, I could see it.
We watched it happen with the Pac-12 over and over again. Their champ would constantly have like 1 or 2 losses and constantly be left out.
Yeah.
Because they're not part of the mighty Southeastern Conference, Ben. Well, way to go. Vandy just guaranteed themselves a spot in the playoff.
Then I guess you better win the conference title.
Vandy could lose out, and they're still going to get in.
Still going to make it. You better win the conference title if you want to punch your ticket.
All right, we'll have more college football. We'll see if we can't get you Witt's press conference coming up next. Stay tuned. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake and Ben want to remind you, join Hans and Scotty Wednesday from 1 to 3 for the Cougar Preview Show, brought to you by Beehive Meals, proud meal partner for BYU Athletics. Check it out. What's your number 1 Rolling Stones song?
Oh, Wild Horses,
All right.
Jumpin' Jack Flash, Street Fight. Might be Street Fighting Man.
Okay.
Yeah,
They got a lot. They got a
they
lot
got a
you
lot.
can go to.
Angie,
There you go.
personal.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. All right. Just checking.
I got a lot. I mean,
There's not a wrong answer.
I wish there was more of a deep dive there, but like, what's their song? What's their album? 40 hits, whatever it was.
40 licks?
40 licks. It's like, yeah, you get 40 number one tracks. So there's a lot to choose
Not a
from.
bad run.
There's a lot to choose from.
Not a bad run. And Mick and Keith still living somehow.
Still kicking it. Yeah.
I'll tell you, when I saw him in the mid 2000s, I was like, I can't believe this old man can move like that.
Yeah, he's still
going.
Still out
that
there.
was like 05.
He should run for president. He'd be electric. He's not from here. You have a favorite?
No. Like I always liked, you can't always get what you want.
Painted Black.
Painted Black is great. Yeah. No, that was what I'm saying. There isn't really a wrong answer there. All right. It's time for you to hear from Coach Witt in his weekly press conference.
All right. First of all, bye week came at a really good time for us. Gave us a chance to regroup a little bit and get some guys some of the bumps and bruises that have accumulated healed up. We've been going since August 1st, so over 2 months straight without any sort of a break. So it's good for these guys to get a break. I think we, as we do every year, try to strike a good balance with getting some practice in, but at the same time giving them some downtime to refresh. So Arizona State road trip this week. They're playing well, 4-1. Impressed with a lot of things about their football team. They're much more productive offensively this year than they were able to be last year. The tailback is a tough, hard-nosed guy. Some good receivers. Just very productive on offense. Quarterback is definitely a dual threat. So we got our work cut out for us, and it's going to be hot, which is nothing new to us. We've had a few hot games this year, and so I think 97 at kick is what it's projected to be. But same for both teams, just like always. So we'll just be able to, or have to handle that, and that's where we're at. So questions. Justin, I should say. Question.
Okay. In regards to the Arizona University game, in the first quarter, it was 4th down 2 yards to go. You decided to go for the first down twice instead of kicking the field goal. It is in my belief that if you would have kicked said field goals, you could have kept the momentum and could have potentially won a game. But you follow the same protocol this week, and you're not a fan of analytics.
You're not a fan of analytics, so you don't believe in science, is what you're trying to say. There's an argument for that, but the analytics was heavily in favor of going for it in those situations. I've said before, we are pretty tuned into the analytics. It's not absolute for us, and if we have a different feel, then we'll go a different direction. But when it's that heavily skewed to going for it, field goals, obviously touchdowns are worth more than double a field goal, and so if you end up kicking field goals a bunch, you don't win many games. And so in hindsight, if I knew we weren't going to get it on 4th down, we would have kicked, but the strategy and the definite statistical recommendation was to go for it. So unfortunately, we were 0 for 4th down in that game, where we had been really good the week before. We were 4 for 5 the week before at Okie State, so it was a complete reversal of that. But there's some old school guys, apparently you're one of them, that would like to kick the field. Okay. Thank you for that question, Justin, by the way. Appreciate it.
A week ago, you said Cam Rising will play as soon as he gets the go-ahead. Is that go-ahead from the medical staff or the coaching staff?
Medical staff, without any other input. I mean, we're following the recommendations. He is following the recommendations as well as from the doctors, and we'll see what happens this week. But there's a chance, I can tell you that, and it's still early in the week, but we're crossing our fingers and hoping for the best, as is Cam. And so we're just seeing how things play out. But again, we follow all the medical recommendations. We're not going to, I'm not a doctor. Cam's not a doctor. We're not going to go against that. So that's where we're at.
Kyle, I'm just curious, what is, I guess, your strategy behind how you approach the injury report?
And to kind of to follow up on that, the Big Ten and the SEC, they have mandated injury reports. Would you be in support if the Big 12 were to go in that direction?
100%. But since there is no mandate, why would you tip your hand in any way, shape, or form with injuries? It doesn't make any sense to give the opponent any more knowledge than they have. And so that's the only reason. It's no other reason other than a competitive advantage. Even though it might be just slight, it's still an advantage. The less they know, the more we know. That type of deal. But yeah, I would support that if the Big 12 were to come out and say, hey, you need to disclose and have an injury report. But I don't think it should be conference to conference. Again, I think P4 should all operate under the same guidelines, the same rules, regulations, and right now it's all over the place. And so I would be in favor of whoever would make that call for all P4 conferences to be aligned and have a consistent way of handling and dealing with injuries. So that's where I'm at.
If a player is medically cleared, but he's not 100%, what's your philosophy on playing him if that player isn't 100%, but whatever percent he is, gives you a better chance to win than 100% of the backup? You see what I'm saying?
You answered your own question, PK. Exactly. That's exactly the formula. It's who gives you the best chance to win. Is an 80% Cam Rising more of an opportunity to win than 100% Isaac Wilson? And so that's a coach's decision, a coach's call, and it's just you're not going to be right all the time, but that's the exact criteria we use. And first of all, you don't want to expose the kid to furthering the injury, but you wouldn't get clearance if you didn't, if that was the case. So it would be exactly what you just said. Whoever that particular week gives us the best chance to win, given the physical circumstances, that would be the guy.
Kyle, Cam is obviously your guy, but does there come a point in the season where if Cam isn't available, that you have to look to the future and just turn it over to us just to say that this is what it is, or how long do you wait?
Yeah, that's a good question, and yeah, there is a point. I'm not going to pin ourselves down to an exact specific time, but as things progress, and then also the conference race, where are you in the conference race? There's some things that enter into it, but it certainly could come to that point, but we're not there yet.
And to follow up, with Isaac, where does he need to make those next steps each week, especially the zone, or what are you seeing that needs to improve? I
would say the entire his entire game just needs to continue to get tighter and better. Cut down on the interceptions, first of all. We've had some interceptions along the way, but there's not any one glaring area we can say, boy, he's really lacking in this or that. It's just he's a freshman, a true freshman, and there's going to be a learning curve, and there's going to be mistakes made that you're going to have to live with. And as long as the more reps he accrues and the more time he gets, playing time, the less those mistakes show up, and we're trending in the right direction. That's really what you're looking for.
To kind of piggyback off of that question, given Isaac's struggles with turnovers, is there, if the keys do have to get handed over to him at some point, is there going to be a consideration to maybe get Brandon Rose or Sam Heward more reps, given the struggles that the offense has had without Cam under Isaac?
Not right now. Right now, Isaac is the guy, and if Cam becomes the guy again, then Isaac becomes the clear-cut number two. And again, if Isaac continues to play and doesn't trend in the right direction, then just what you said may come into play. But right now, we don't feel that's in play at this point.
Bernard's had a fantastic season, but what have you seen from the other running backs lately, and how do you get more production out of that?
Yeah, Micaiah has been the bell cow. He's been RB1. He's played himself into that role. He was not in that role initially at the beginning of the season. We're going to let things sort themselves out, which they have, and he is the guy that's getting the vast majority of the carries. The other backs, Mike Mitchell, just a freshman, still learning, but he's added some value to that room and had some good carries this season. Dijon Stanley's done the same thing, although he's more of a limited package guy. Charlie Vincent's contributed. Jalen Glover is a guy that is in the room as well that you may see start to get more time. But Micaiah is the number one guy, and his play has been outstanding, and so that's why he has got the vast majority of the carries.
bye weeks are important for the players to recoup and rest. For coaches, how much does it help you guys to reset schematically, personnel-wise, just assessing your team?
It gives us a good opportunity to evaluate everything, but there's a lot of recruiting going on as well during the bye week, so it's not just football. Our coaches were on the road for half the bye week, and recruiting never stops. You're doing some form of recruiting every single day, and so when you have a bye week, it lets you physically get off campus and go watch players and evaluate, and so that was going on, but the being able to, again, self-evaluate and help, make personnel decisions going forward, all that type of stuff bye week is a good time to get that done.
Given that Arizona ran for more than 5 yards a carry and over 50 yards, how do you challenge your defense? How do you talk to them in the film room and kind of set the stage? When you're going against teams like some of the balls pretty fast.
Yeah, well, just challenge them just like that. Say, if we can stop the run, then we got a good chance of winning, and we did not do a good job against Arizona. We'd done a pretty good job all season up until that game. Well, all season, what was it, 4 games? But that'll be the key this week. They're a run-heavy team. They're well over 200 yards a game rushing, and if we're as non-effective as we were in the Arizona game, it's going to be a long night, and so that is the big challenge for our defense is to stud up and become what we know we can be against the run.
Obviously, you walked into the season kind of because there was rumors floating that Cam could potentially play an 8th year of college football. Given his injury status, is that a possibility if he has to shut down for the rest of the season that he could potentially come back for an 8th year of college football?
You know what? I couldn't say for sure. That's a compliance question. But if it does come to that point, that's something we would thoroughly have the answer to and research. But haven't even really given that any thought because we're just hopefully going to get him back sooner rather than later. So, and I know he wants to play. He wants to play badly.
With the way that the schedule has been set up, you have this week, next week, and the week after 3 games, and then another bye week. How crucial is this stretch of the schedule for you guys?
Well, it's very crucial. I mean, we got our backs to the wall in a lot of respects right now. I mean, you look at the standings in the Big 12, and there's 2 or 3 teams with 3 losses that are essentially out of it. I mean, I don't see how that any way that they can, I guess I shouldn't say there's no way, but it's very, very unlikely that they're going to have an opportunity to be in the championship game. And the 2 lost teams have a somewhat of a chance, and everyone with 1 loss or less is still right in the thick of it. But every week we got to get back on track. We didn't play well against Arizona. You can be a good football team and not play well and get your butt handed to you. Look at Alabama. You telling me that Vanderbilt has even close to the personnel that Alabama has? There's no way. I mean, that Minnesota has even close to the personnel that USC has. And so that there's illustrations all over the place where it doesn't matter. Well, it matters, but you can be a really good football team, but if you don't perform and execute, you're going to get beat. And so where we are right now, we can't look past Arizona State. Yeah, there is 3 games and then a bye, but it's all focused on Arizona State, and this is an important stretch, and it's we gotta get the ship turned back around because it was a very disappointing loss against Arizona. The quarterback played well again, Fafita. The receiver's terrific. I don't want to diminish what they accomplished, but we did not play well.
Obviously, you like to have earlier games. I think you said you wanted 4 a.m. games if you could.
Sure, let's go. Yeah.
But when you have these late games, a couple weeks ago with the Arizona game, now you get this game with Arizona State. How do you keep guys, or what do you do as a team to kind of help them kind of stay in the mode and not let the day just kind of get away from them?
Good question. And on game day, when it is a late kick, we have, first of all, meetings. There's some short, not extensive, but short offense, defensive meetings, walk through. We have a flex period where they go and stretch out and stay loose. We got a nap period, a designated nap block of time. There's 3 meals that day. You got breakfast, lunch, and the pregame meal later on. And so we find a way to keep them occupied, but make sure they have enough time just to rest and relax and get themselves ready for the game. And it'll be important this week to hydrate. I mean, obviously that'll be part of it, and so pushing fluids on game day as well as all week long. But that's a big part of it.
Kind of to shift focus to the red zone issues that you guys have had for the past 2 weeks. How much of that is not having Cam in the lineup versus just personnel and schematic struggles?
Yeah, Cam's very good in the red zone. historically, and so that's a part of it. And we're about 20% off where we need to be. It's not like we just absolutely are horrible. We're at 50%, which isn't good by any means, but 70% is our target. And if we can be 70% in the red zone, which we have been several years, then that's good production. And Cam would certainly, an experienced guy like him that's got as much accrued football time, he's going to be very adept at functioning in the red zone.
Final question.
Sam Levitt was someone you guys looked at in the transfer portal. What stood out in that time, and what challenges does he pose to the defense?
His athleticism. He's a true dual threat, as I mentioned earlier. He's doing a good job with the QB run game for him. He's still really young, and so his development is still ahead of him. His efficiency rating right now is about 133 throwing the ball, so got some work to do there. But he's doing a really good job of doing what they're asking him to do, and they're doing a really good job of making sure the offense is tailored to his skill set. And he's, like I said, a very capable runner. He's a tough kid. We liked everything about him. We thought he could be a terrific safety as well, or linebacker. I mean, he's one of those QBs that could play 2 or 3 other spots, and he's so athletic, like a Chase Hansen type of a guy. Yeah.
There's Kyle Whittingham, his weekly press conference, and yep, we have no idea if Cam Rising is going to play.
Yeah, same as last week or 2 weeks ago. It's the exact same thing.
Same as last year.
It would have been more helpful for everyone had they just said, we're not talking about Cam until he's playing. Just not going to talk about it.
Who?
Not going to talk.
Yeah.
Sorry, we don't know.
Stay tuned.
No answer.
Wrap it up. Jake and Ben next, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This segment brought to you by Peach Doors and Windows. Amazing home transformations begin with Peach, where 5-star reviews are the norm. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255.
It's official. Shams is going to ESPN.
What a shock.
He starts going on Armpit Show 6 months ago, and all of a sudden he's the face of ESPN.
What a surprise.
No shock.
Want to remind you can win lunch from KSL, the KSL Sports Zone at Cafe Rio on Taco Tuesday. Listen every Tuesday for your chance to win a $20 gift card. Learn more about Taco Tuesday and the great deals available every week at caferio.com. So Shams is taking the gig. Not surprised.
He's taking the gig. You look back again, he was going on Armpit Show instead of Woj, and everyone's like, why is he going on? Why is the competitor going on the biggest ESPN show right now? It's because this groundwork has been being laid for a year now. Woj retires, steps away. I'm curious now if there's more to this story than we think.
Oh, yeah. Shams and Armpit pushed him out, for sure.
So Woj steps away.
And LeBron probably, too.
And Zach Lowe gets fired because clearly ESPN is saying that the best response, the best click traffic they get is based on instant breaking news in the NBA. Those Woj bombs that used to be, or ShamWows as they like to call them, that's what drives traffic, not actual analysis like you were getting from Zach Lowe. So better to just pay one guy like Shams, especially once Woj is out of the way, and then it's all monopolized. There's only one place now where people are going to go to get breaking news in the NBA, and it's going to be Shams, and they don't really care about the analysis. So
Hanson, Scotty G are coming up next. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks,
Jake and
Christian.
Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.